When you hear the word king, what do you think of? You know, absolute power, divine right to rule, someone who's totally above the law? Well, get ready because in ancient Sparta, things were a lot different. We're about to dive into a story that pretty much flips our whole idea of kingship right on its head.
I mean, seriously? How do you fire a king? It sounds like a joke, right? Like something out of a modern office comedy. But this was a very real question for one of the most legendary warrior societies in all of history. So let's go back and see how the Spartans handled let's call it a royal performance review. Because here's the thing about Sparta. The king wasn't the end-all be-all. Not even close. You had these other really powerful groups, like the Ephorate, that was a council of 5 elected officials, and the Assembly, which was made up of all Spartan citizens. And believe me, they could hold a king's feet to the fire. And there's no better example of this than the crazy career of one particular king.
Okay, so let's meet our guy, King Pleistoanax from the Agiad dynasty. Now, he inherited the throne just like you'd expect a king to do, but he was about to learn a really, really hard lesson. In Sparta, your birthright did not mean you had job security. So here's the setup. It's 446 BC. Pleistoanax is leading the Spartan army right into the heart of enemy territory, Attica, home of their rivals, the Athenians. He's got them right where he wants them. Victory is in sight, and then he just turns around and goes home. No fight, no big victory, nothing. You can probably guess the folks back in Sparta were not thrilled.
So the question on everyone's mind was, why? I mean, why would a Spartan king, of all people, back down from a fight? The state wanted answers, and pretty soon, a really serious accusation started to fly around.
And here we have it, straight from the historian Thucydides, who was actually alive and writing about this as it happened. The charge was bribery, corruption. The story was that the Athenian leader Pericles had straight up paid Pleistoanax a massive bribe to just pack up his army and leave. And what's so wild is how Thucydides talks about it. Not like it's some rumor, but like it's a full-blown political scandal. So the king gets put on trial, and the verdict? Well, it was harsh, and it sent a crystal clear message about who was really in charge in Sparta. 15 years. Just let that sink in. 15 years of exile, a whole generation. The state didn't just give him a fine or a slap on the wrist. Nope, they stripped a king, a hereditary king, of all his power and kicked him out of his own home. This wasn't just a punishment. It was a massive statement about where the true authority was. It wasn't with the king, it was with the state itself. And this case just lays out the Spartan system of checks and balances perfectly. Sure, the king got to lead the army, he was the face of Sparta on the world stage, but he was absolutely no dictator. The Ephorate and the Assembly, these groups of elected officials and regular citizens, they held the ultimate trump card. They had the power to fire him if they thought he was corrupt or just bad at his job. But believe it or not, the story doesn't end there. After 15 long years out in the cold, Pleistoanax actually makes a comeback. And the way he does it is just as revealing as why he was kicked out in the first place. So all of a sudden, the most powerful, most respected religious voice in the entire Greek world, the oracle at Delphi, starts sending messages to Sparta. And these messages all say the same thing, over and over and over. You have to bring your king home. After years of this kind of divine nagging, the Spartans finally give in, and Pleistoanax gets his old job back. But here's the twist. Thucydides tells us that the Spartans themselves were super suspicious of this whole thing. They weren't just blindly following a command from the gods. No, the rumor mill was churning. And the hot gossip was that Pleistoanax had just used the same trick twice. If you can't beat the state legally, maybe you can just buy off the gods, or at least the priestess who speaks for them. And this just goes to show you that even something as sacred as the Delphic oracle could be used as a political weapon. To get his throne back, Pleistoanax had to play the game. He allegedly manipulated this huge religious authority just to get what he wanted. It had nothing to do with divine right. It was all about clever and maybe shady political moves.
Okay, so let's take a breath. What can we pull from this entire crazy saga? The life of Pleistoanax is basically a masterclass in the very unique, very weird political setup of ancient Sparta.
So, what did we learn? First, and this is the big one, a Spartan king could be fired. His job was absolutely not safe.
Second, it shows how even the most holy institutions could be used as pawns in a political chess match. And his long exile had another big effect. It seriously weakened his own family line, shifting a lot of power over to Sparta's other royal family, the Eurypontids.
And his return wasn't just for show. A few years later, when Sparta and Athens sign a huge peace treaty, whose name is right there on the document, Pleistoanax, he's co-signing it with the other king, Aeges II. This proves he was fully back in business, restored to all his duties as a co-ruler. The system had chewed him up, spit him out, and then welcomed him right back in. Which leaves us with one last, really fascinating question to chew on. This whole story about Pleistoanax forces us to rethink what it even meant to be a king back then. I mean, if you can be tried, convicted, and exiled, and then have to politic and scheme your way back into power, are you really a monarch in the way we usually think of one? Or are you something totally different? Maybe just the state's most powerful but ultimately accountable employee? It's something to think about.